Hello and welcome to the Pitchsider Podcast. There's been no club football this week. However, there is still a lot to talk about, from the Nations League to new managers in the Championship and League One. Joining me as normal is the chief editor of the Pitchsider, Mr. Toby Green. How are we?
I'm very well. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, very good, thank you. A lot of football that hasn't been played, but off the pitch there's still a lot to talk about. So let's start with the news, and there's big news coming out of West Ham. Mark Noble becomes West Ham's sporting director. What are your thoughts on this, Toby?
Well, I'm not sure what his credentials are. However, saying that, he is a club legend. He's played over 550 games for West Ham, so he knows the club inside out. I'm sure he'll do a good job there. I'm sure it'll be a sort of a learning curve for him. But I guess when you are a player and you're in that environment and then you get considered, you sort of know what needs to be done, what holes need to be filled. So, yeah, in that sense, it does seem like a sensible appointment. I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think going back to you saying his credentials, he did recently graduate from Harvard Business School in America with a business and leadership degree. So that may have an effect of why West Ham have appointed him very quickly after sort of retiring.
Perhaps, yeah. I guess you do need sort of business acumen in that role. I guess we'll see how it gets on at the club. I'm sure that the fans will give him plenty of time to adjust, and the club itself, knowing how well and how long he spent at that club, given his time over the years, the one club man. I think he'll do well there.
Yeah, I think he will do well. Obviously, West Ham aren't in the best of forms, but let's see what improvements he can make on and off the pitch now he's retired, and hopefully he can lead to successful time at West Ham. Moving on, Barcelona have surprisingly made a profit. I don't know if you've seen this reported. So they've reported that they made a £68 million profit in the last financial year.
Yes, yeah. I'm not surprised in a way because of the levers they pulled. They've basically secured future revenue for the immediate future. So in that sense, it does make a lot of sense, even though they've spent a tremendous amount of money, bringing in loads of players. Also, the wages that they've accumulated. I'm sure they'll be in like maybe the top 5 spending clubs in terms of wages. But yeah, it has been sort of expected. This is just depending on what their issues will arise in the future, if there will be any, because they've sort of bargained on immediate success. So who knows what will happen in the future?
Yeah, but on the other end of the scale, your club United have announced that they have made a net loss of 115.5 million for that same financial year. Barcelona have made a profit. What's your take on this?
Well, they have gone pretty hard in the window as of late. The last few years, bringing in like Sancho, Ronaldo, and Varane, which all come with steep wages and increase the wages. I think for the first time in a long time, we've become the club with the highest wage bill. We've overtaken City, which I guess is expected with this turnover of players, and I guess the quality of players that have been brought in. I know Ronaldo hasn't done too well so far, but he does command a big wage. But I think the annoying thing is for United fans and people who know the club is that the Glazers are still taking out 25 million a year in dividends, even though the club's in huge debt, and the debt has increased year on year, and still the owners take money out. So I guess you can see why I hate American owners.
Yeah, so United have a current wage bill, as of last year, raised by 19.1% with all your intake. It went to 384.2 million, whereas City's was 355. So it's roughly about a £30 million difference between the two clubs. But I suppose, yeah, your debt went from 419 to 514 within the year, which is a rise of 22%.
It's about 100 million almost on top.
Mm.
So it's not a pretty sight. For a club of the size and how it is structured, it will survive. If a smaller club had that sort of percentage of increase in debt, then they may go under. But United always has those sponsorship deals and the stadium tickets revenue that'll keep it afloat. But it's not a promising trajectory as it stands. And hopefully the on-pitch results, have not been great as of late. Well, in the last 10 years or so. So that definitely has an impact on revenue. Hopefully that will change, and maybe getting more results, getting some more trophies will counteract this massive deficit they've got.
Yeah, it's not looking good for United, but hopefully with this end of COVID and fans allowed back in the stadiums and that, sales will start to go up. But I suppose also if you get Ronaldo off your books, he'll bring in a lot of player shirt sales every year, and sponsorship. But whether getting that wage bill off will have a negative effect, I don't know. But I think it was reported that about Barcelona have made like an extra 600 million since signing Messi just in commercial deals alone. I think I saw this week. So I'm guessing Ronaldo probably has a similar effect for United in that way.
Yeah, I mean, people do say that shirt sales are generated when you sign a big player. That's not the case because clubs always sign pre-contracts with Nike or Adidas. They're paid yearly rather than how many units they sell. So in that regards, it's not going to make a difference, but it will make a difference in terms of the sponsorships that they can acquire. And Ronaldo with his media pool will bring a lot of money in that regards. But what you did say about the stadium and how COVID has affected clubs, United particularly because of their size of the stadium, they bring in a tremendous amount of money through ticket sales. Smaller clubs, or I should say clubs with smaller stadiums, it may have had less of an impact on them because it was a smaller part of their revenue stream. But as United have the biggest stadium, maybe arguably Tottenham sort of caught up almost, but one of the biggest stadiums in England, it had a big impact on them financially.
Let's move on and to something that most football fans will be disappointed with this stat. We've mentioned it previously on the podcast with cup finals, fans rushing onto the pitch, but it was released by the Home Office this week that football disorder in England and Wales has reached the highest it has since 2013-14. It's an 8-year high. This isn't something that football wants to be associated with players getting, well, fans getting banned and more. There was 141 pitch invasions last season, which is up by 127% on the season 18-19.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking statistics. I mean, historically, English clubs have been banned from Europe due to their fans of fighting. I think it was in the mid 80s that they had a European-wide ban for English clubs. I don't think it'll go the same way in terms of bans, but it's not great to see. I know you see other clubs in Europe have bad fans, ones that cause maybe riots and violence, but they're usually isolated to a couple of clubs, and you tend to see it more when they play teams abroad. I know, such as like the Frankfurt fans were, told basically still stop fighting when they go abroad. But yeah, domestically, it's quite an issue in England at the moment, and I guess Wales as well. And I don't know what they can do about it because penalising the club through financial
like restraints or fines.
Yeah, fines, I guess. Doesn't really make an impact on the actual fans. However, I guess if you dock clubs points, maybe that will make them pay more of attention to that if they can see their clubs actually being impacted on in terms of the league position. But yeah, at the moment it's not pretty viewing.
No, so last season, 53% of all games played at all levels, there was instance reported, so 1,609 games out of the 3,019 matches played, which is pretty shocking. Do you want to have a guess at the 3 clubs that were the highest, that had the most banning orders last season?
In England?
Yeah.
Premier League, is it?
2 Premier League, and I think one's a League One team. You can probably guess the League One team.
Millwall?
Yes.
I guess
they were the highest.
Historically, no. I don't know the Premier League ones. Maybe Chelsea?
No.
I don't know.
So it was Leicester City with 28 and Everton with 26.
Interesting. Maybe it tells you something about the demographic of those particular regions.
Yeah. It's just, if you're in the stadiums and you don't really want to be pitch invading or throwing stuff. And I've been at matches, and I went to an England match last season, and a lot of people were making paper planes out of their tickets and throwing them onto the pitch, which obviously litters the pitch and stops the game. And if a team like England are in a flow, which is very hard for England to get into at the moment, it could, by them just picking up these paper planes, it disrupts the game, could disrupt the flow, and it could have a negative effect on the game.
Yeah. If I went to watching it, I'll be one of those people who threw paper planes, not gonna lie. But yeah, I don't think it compares to actual violence against other fans, even your own fans. Recently we've seen fans attack players. I think it was one of the cup finals, maybe the playoff final actually against Forest and Sheffield. There was an altercation with Billy Sharp, and there's been a few of those actually recently. But so yeah, it's not great viewing. So I don't know. Maybe they need tougher policies, better stewards, more stewards. Who knows what the answer is going to be? But yeah, not great.
No, it isn't great. But this is something that will have to be sorted out by the FA and the government, and potentially will cost the clubs even more money. But it's a situation we're having to deal with. But yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting story, especially as we're coming out sort of COVID and fans are back. But let's move on to something a bit more positive for a couple of clubs. So there's been a couple of managers' appointments this week, which you're going to take us through.
Yes, sure. So recently, Derby County have appointed a new boss. They had Liam Rosenau as interim, and now they brought in Paul Vaughan as their head coach. I mean, recently Derby have had a pretty solid window. They brought in some good players. They sit 11th in the league. There's only 9 games played so far, but they had they had an incredibly small squad prior to the start of pre-season. Only having 4 or 5 players, and so it would have been a big undertaking to bring in a whole new squad. The players they had brought in there have been quality, definitely League One quality, if not Championship. They just need to fill in a few more players, so hopefully they'll be able to strengthen in those areas. But in terms of Paul Vaughan, he's quite he's familiar with the league, so that's definitely what they need. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress. And more recently, I think it was announced that Watford have appointed Croatian Slaven Bilic, which is kind of a shock because Rob Edwards was having a quite a good run as Watford boss. He's only played 11 games, or managed 11 games, I should say, but they were in, I think, fourth spot. So it's a little bit of a shock, but it is the Pozzo family who are notorious for sacking managers. The merry-go-round of Watford managers, it's quite notorious nowadays. It's not really a career prospect that you want to go to, Watford. I don't know, maybe if I was an upcoming manager, obviously it's a big team with ambitions and resources that could reach the Premier League. But with these kind of owners, you feel, any minute you could get sacked. And, I think it was only two dodgy games maybe that Edwards had endured recently that made the board decide to sack him. So very harsh on him. Slavan is, he's a decent manager, but, more recently he's been managing in China. So he's sort of not really in the good trajectory in his career, unlike Edwards, who was on the way up since leaving Forest Green Rovers. So, yeah, I don't know. Bit of a gamble from Watford. They're definitely hoping they could bank on Bilic getting into the Premier League, which he's done before. So, we'll see.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago he was managing West Ham, I don't think, was it? Or was it it
was a while ago.
A couple of years ago. Yeah.
Probably like 5-6 years ago. Well, maybe less than that, but it feels a long time ago now.
Yeah, let's move on to some football. So this week we've had no club football, but it is an international break of the Nations League. I will just do a little sort of explanation of how the Nations League works, as if you were like me or Toby, you probably have forgotten how this competition works, or you probably didn't know how it works, because not many people probably care about this unless you're in the final and you win, like Portugal. But if you've forgotten, it currently is split into 4 different leagues, with A being the highest and B being the lowest, and that is then split into 4 groups with 4 teams in A, B and C. And all these teams then play each other twice. In D, there's 2 groups, one with 4 teams and one with 3. And it works a bit like relegation. So if you become top in your group, you get promoted. And if you get lowest, you then get relegated. So you could go from A to B or B to A. The top 4 teams in A then go into the finals, and one of them being picked at random to be the host. And then it is done with 2 semi-finals and a final and a third place, which England recently got to in the last round of the Nations League. And then in Group A, B and C, the 4 top teams from each group will then go off into the playoffs for Euro 2024. So it's quite an interesting, I think it's trying to get rid of some of these international friendlies, but yeah, most people probably don't really care about. Most people will see these as like a international friendly, or people prefer, like me, I prefer an international friendly. You play some more different teams rather than same teams you're going to play in Europe. But yeah, I'll quickly go through the games from Thursday. So on Thursday we had Croatia versus Denmark, which ended 2-1. France beat Austria 2-0. Kazakhstan was 2, Belarus was 1. Azerbaijan beat Slovakia 2-1. Moldova beat Latvia 2-1. Andorra beat Liechtenstein 2-0. Belgium versus Wales was 2-1. Netherlands versus Poland was 2-0 to Netherlands. Lithuania versus Faroe Islands?
Faroe
was 1-1, and Luxembourg versus Turkey was 3-3. Is there any games you want to talk about from that day?
I want to mention namely the Wales-Belgium game. It hasn't been pretty viewing for Wales in this group so far. They've lost 3 games in total. We'll go on to the more recent one soon, but they've lost to Netherlands, Belgium and Poland. 3 difficult teams to play against. But I guess setting up for a World Cup, it's not the most impressive form. With Wales in particular, they've not really known for having quality throughout the pitch, particularly in midfield at the moment. Bale is playing very sporadically for LAFC. And Ramsey is also just starting to play more often for Nice at the moment. So, yeah, not the best preparation for them. But I guess, any sort of opportunity to play as a unit will strengthen a team like Wales, who do seem to turn up for tournaments. I was a little bit shocked by Turkey, only managing a draw against Luxembourg, 3-3. I know Turkey isn't blessed for talent all over the pitch at the moment, but they certainly have the quality to beat a team like Luxembourg. Netherlands winning 2-0 against Poland was not exactly a shock. Poland have good players, but don't really play very exciting football, kind of pragmatic. But yeah, for the Netherlands, it's quite a good run they've had so far. So it'll be interesting to see how well they can do at the World Cup. I can talk about the Friday games as well. We've had quite a few less games. Start off with Georgia winning 2-0 against Macedonia. Kvaratskhelia, the Napoli winger, scored in that game. Estonia beat Malta 2-1. Germany lost to Hungary 1-0. Italy beat England 1-0. Bosnia beat Montenegro 1-0. Finland drew with Romania 1-0. And Bulgaria beat Gibraltar 5-1. I guess we have to speak about the England-Italy game, but I think first we should mention the Germany-Hungary game. So Hungary have been in amazing form in this group. I think even they top it at the moment. Mm-hmm. They've got quite a unique bunch of players. I guess the standout is Schlobslai from Leipzig, but Adam Slazai, the 34-year-old lanky striker that they've got, he's at Basel and sort of the twilight of his career, but he's still performing amazingly well for Hungary. And they just seem like a really solid team. England haven't beaten them. Germany lost in this game. I think Italy had maybe a draw against them. So yeah, quite interesting to watch Hungary, how well they've been playing as a unit. And they've got a player called Callum Styles, who does not sound Hungarian at all. I think he's English, but he's Hungarian through some grandparents that he has. But yeah, let's talk about the big one, Italy, England. What do you think, Joe?
So I watched this game, but I don't know. It was a weird sort of setup from Southgate. I can see what he's doing, but I mean, probably one of the biggest shocks was playing a right winger in Saka at left back, or left wing back in what he played. Saka seemed a little bit lost on that wing. It's a big shock to play when a player plays on one side. It's a big shock for them to play on the other side. I know they should be able to, but yeah, to be able to then be put in with defensive sort of accoutrements, I don't know. I don't really rate Southgate at the moment. I mean, I did a poll on our Instagram today to Southgate out. At the moment, I think most people are going for to keep Southgate. But one player I don't agree with starting, I think I voiced this last week or whenever we talk about England, is Harry Maguire. He's played hasn't played in 6 games for United, sat on the bench, played little bits here and there, and then we start him at a centre back in the back of 3. I don't know. I don't think he should have started. Yeah, just sort of lackluster. No real sort of identity.
Well, I think, with Maguire's, I do feel like he does perform better for England. And in this game, he was not given a single favour by Saka playing a wing back. Yes, Saka has played there before for Arsenal, but more recently in his career, he still played as a left winger or a right winger. And he just left so many gaps for Harry Maguire. Maguire had to cover 2 men. And with his pace, that was impossible. And I think, more of an issue is probably Shaw playing than Maguire, because Shaw hasn't played a single minute of football for United this season. And although he probably would have done a better job than Saka, it's a bit worrying that at that particular position on the pitch, still a lot of question marks. We're so heavily one-sided in terms of our development of fullbacks. It's a little bit scary. So I don't know what we're going to do for the World Cup. I do feel like we're playing a three at the back formation. So it does open the question who's going to play at the left wing back position. I imagine it will be Shaw, just because of his how well he's done for England. And let's not forget he has done really well for England when he's played there. He scored in the final of the Euros, and he was one of the best players at the World Cup as well. I think you could say the same for Maguire as well on his in terms of what he's done for England at tournaments. I can see why Southgate's kept him in there. But the game in general was incredibly slow. Didn't lack any penetration or desire, which is very worrying. And as a result of that, we got knocked out. Well, not knocked out of the Nations League, but knocked out of our group. Definitely didn't deserve to stay in there, though. Maybe we'll play against some easier teams when the next round comes about. But yeah, not looking great for our preparation for the World Cup with all these losses.
No.
However, saying that, I am still Southgate in, unlike yourself, Joe. I feel like we need to wait until after the World Cup. He deserves that opportunity after what he's done for England during the Euros and World Cup, and then we can review it after the World Cup.
The only thing for me is Southgate's done well for England, and he's pushed us further than we've got. But I feel like he's playing players that play well for England. They may not necessarily be in any sort of form. Whereas we've got players on the bench that, at left back, we haven't really got anyone. I would maybe argue Chilwell, which is in the squad. He should maybe be playing. I know he's not fully fit, but he has played for Chelsea. When he has played, he's played quite well. He got an assist and a goal in the time he's played, which is more than Luke Shaw. And I believe Luke Shaw is also starting tonight against Germany in about 20 minutes. But yeah, when we've got players on the bench like Tomori and like Gerhi that have been playing games, these players need to come in. Dyer was a very good shout. He's been playing really well for England and also for Spurs. He's got a couple of goals this season. I do rate that, but yeah, I don't know. But
yeah, I can see where you're coming from. It is a case of whether you play the sort of trusted heads for England, albeit if they have poor form or no form if they're not playing, or fresher players. But I don't know. It is a bit of a gamble this late stage. I guess playing the players he's played so far hasn't really worked out. So maybe he does line up for an opportunity to mix things up. But as this is the Italy game was the penultimate game before the World Cup started. I can understand why he didn't want to shake it up too much.
No, I understand why he hasn't shaken it up for the Italy game. I predicted him to put out first 11 that he would start in the World Cup. We needed to go and basically win this game to stay in the group. Saying that, today we go and play Germany. We have lost everything in this group, so it doesn't matter if we go and get a win or a loss. I know this is for fans and that he needs to go and get a win here. He needs to boost the fans. If I was Southgate, I would be experimenting with certain players. You've got players that for example, Ivan Toney he's not starting for England today. He is sat on the bench. We've got Harry Kane up front. Surely we should be considering players like Tammy, players like Ivan Toney. Harry Kane's form, he's a very good striker, but he can be very injury prone. He's always out injured for a couple of weeks every season. I think we should maybe be looking to play a more rotated side and to be more narrowing down his squad to give like Ivan Toney a chance to sort of maybe give him a little bit. All he's been able to show is what he can do on the training pitch, and whether a 20-minute cameo is going to get him in that World Cup squad, I don't know.
Well, on that, I don't think Abraham himself has had a great year so far, so I can understand why he hasn't played. In terms of going into the tournament, you definitely want to have at least most of your players that will play every game. And Kane's one of them. He was top scorer during the Euros, so definitely he'll play every game. I know with Tony's form that he will be most likely be backup. Watkins would be probably the other alternative, but he's a terrible year so far. I think he's only got 1 goal. So Tony would definitely go. Saying that, I don't think he'll be a starter. Maybe if we're losing, he'll come on. But yeah, realistically, if Tony was to play, he would be playing alongside Kane. If we were not, winning a game or grasping it to its fullest, unless Kane's injured, of course. So maybe in this game against Germany, he'll bring on Tony to play alongside Kane. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. But yeah, I don't see. I can see Abraham being taken, but I don't think he'll be anywhere near the starting 11. And yeah, Watkins won't be.
No, I think there's also a player that's trying to get in but won't is Calvert-Lewin, but he's going to be nowhere near the squad, especially in Tony and form. Abraham is inside. He's not in the greatest form, but he is scoring in Italy. But yeah, it's just I would have maybe seen more of a rotation, especially in the goal. Obviously, Pickford is England's number one. I think Southgate has sort of mentioned that. But we've got very good goalkeepers in Nick Pope and Ramsdale, and also Dean Henderson. Whether one of these, sort of Henderson and Ramsdale, should have maybe given a sort of an opportunity to impress what they could do in goal rather than starting Pope for 2 games, I don't know. But this is football, and yeah, it's gonna. Everyone's going to be behind the manager when he's doing well, and they're always not going to be behind the manager when they're when they're doing well. Everyone will be behind him, and everything will be forgotten. I will now do Saturday. Yeah. So Northern Ireland beat Kosovo 2-1. Cyprus beat Greece 1-0. Portugal beat Czech Republic 4-0. Switzerland beat Spain 2-1. Ukraine beat Armenia 5-0. Scotland beat Republic of Ireland 2-1. Israel beat Albania 2-1. Slovenia beat Norway 2-1. And Serbia beat Sweden 4-1. Is there any games you want to mention?
Yes, definitely. I want to mention Serbia because, for the World Cup, they're one of my hot picks, to be honest. I know they're in a group with Brazil, but I feel like they've got some fantastic players. In particular, in this game, Mitrovic scored a hat-trick. Partnered him is Dusan Vlahovic, Juventus' main man up front. They've also got Milinkovic-Savic and Milinkovic-Savic's brother, who's a keeper. They got Filip Kostic, who also plays for Juventus. And they got Lukic as well, who plays for Torino, who used to play for Lazio. But they've got a lot of great talent throughout the whole pitch. And Sweden aren't a bad team at all. But there is a player from Sweden I do want to mention. His name is Isak Hien. 3 years ago, he played as a centre-back in Sweden. Sorry, as a striker in Sweden's 3rd division. Going on 3 years. Now he's a centre-back playing in Serie A. So he's had a massive turnaround in his career. So it's great to see. But yeah, Serbia is one of my ones to watch, I guess, for the World Cup. I guess another game I want to mention is also Switzerland beating Spain. It's been an issue for Spain for a long time, not having a striker of any real might. I guess the only one is really Morata, and he's very hot and cold. So yeah, without him, they're sort of lacking that focal point. And the way they used to play, it didn't really affect them because they had sort of the tiki-taka ability of Xavi and Iniesta, but they don't have that anymore. So I don't know if it'll affect them a lot. They've still got a few of their old guards still in there, like Busquets, Alba, and Azpilicueta. But I think it'll be an interesting World Cup with Spain, to say the least. But yeah, great result for Switzerland. I completely forgot Shaqiri was still playing for them. Fair enough. Switzerland do actually have a good team. And other than that, I want to say Portugal played well. 4-0 victory against Czech Republic. Czech Republic quite solid usually. And Diogo Dalot, United's fullback, got a brace. And he got an assist as well, I believe. I think that'd be a really interesting team to watch. Their manager, who had a bit of a mare, basically he forgot he had a centre back on the pitch, so he played a defensive midfielder at centre back. And after the game, he said, "Oh, I forgot I had Jallo from Lille on the bench, the centre back, which is not the thing you want to hear from a manager. But yeah, anyway, they've got a really good team, Portugal. Definitely be fun to watch at the World Cup. And just finally, we can go through the Sunday games. So Andorra drew with Latvia 1-0. Moldova beat Liechtenstein 2-0. Slovakia drew with Belarus 1-0. Azerbaijan beat Kazakhstan 3-0. Croatia beat Austria 3-1. Denmark beat France 2-0. Netherlands beat Belgium 1-0. Wales lost to Poland 1-0. The Faroe Islands beat Turkey 2-1. And Luxembourg beat Lithuania 1-0. Any games you want to pick up?
So I suppose we should talk about Wales versus Poland. Obviously, Poland getting a victory here. But, I mean, they looked good, Wales. They came very close. I think Bale hit the post in the sort of like 90th minute. But, yeah, I think Bale had more of a chance to sort of win this. But, yeah, I don't know what you thought about this game.
It's not really an issue for Wales, but the thing that stands out to me, they've got their midfielders, the central midfielders. They got one from Portsmouth. They got a United loanee who plays at Dundee. They've got another one from Swindon and one from Birmingham, an 18-year-old. So I think that's the main part of the pitch they're lacking when Ramsey's not playing is the central midfield. So maybe that'll pose an issue for them. I know Neco Williams played right mid, which he's sort of a wing back, so I guess that makes sense, but not his natural position. But for the World Cup, I think that'll be stronger with Ramsey back, and hopefully Bale is more fully fit and able to play all the 490. I wanted to mention a bit of a shock was France losing to Denmark 2-0. Denmark have looked very solid throughout. They do have a fantastic team, Christensen and Joachim Andersen, centre-backs, with Joachim Mæhle from Atalanta and Christensen from Leeds as the two full-backs. So their defence is very good. Kasper Schmeichel, having a terrible year, been dropped by Nice for former Chelsea keeper Bolker. But I guess for Denmark, he's still a good keeper. And also they've got a lot of quality in midfield, Delaney, Højbjerg and Eriksen. So yeah, very good team. Saying that, France should have beaten them. I know France, unlike Southgate, have been sort of experimenting more younger players. Apart from their front threes, remain sort of ever consistent with Mbappe, Giroud and Griezmann. I'm sure will be the front three for the World Cup. But the whole sort of back line was quite young. Bashidile from Monaco and Saliba and Upamecano, all quite young. Who knows what they're going to play at the back because they've sort of shifted around a lot. I think Saliba will probably be a starter there for sure. And I would like to see Nkunku somehow squeeze his way into there. He might have to displace Griezmann, which seems unlikely as Griezmann is the captain of France when Lloris is not playing. But yeah, interesting one for France.
Yeah,
result for them.
I think for France it's also going to be interesting, especially if players. I know Pogba's probably not going to be fit, but I think Kante now is getting back to fitness and should be ready for Chelsea's first game against Palace. So whether it's going to be a game whether Kante will be fit for the World Cup, time will tell. But yeah, their midfield is probably going to be a bit of an issue for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kante will be locked on as a starter. I mean, they do have the two Real Madrid young midfielders, Camavinga and Tchouameni, who are highly a lot of quality and with great potential. And I think they can do a job for France. But yeah, it's a lot of in some of the positions if they have injuries, and there's a lot of. I know they have a lot of quality on the bench and all that, but embedded them into the team and get them used to playing how Deschamps wants to play would be maybe a little bit of a challenge, but who knows? Been interesting to watch out for. And I guess finally the other team that I want to mention is Croatia, who I remember in the last World Cup they were my underdogs in my sweepstake. I'm not sure how I got that through the rules, but anyway they got to the final. And yeah, they seem to be an incredibly solid team. I know Modric is pretty old now at 37, but he can do the job still. So yeah, I'm sure they'll do well in the World Cup regardless.
Yeah, I think that about wraps up the Nations League for now. Probably mention it a little bit next week because it's currently one last fixture of games. But is there any international friendlies you would want to mention that's happened elsewhere?
Just a few, really. So earlier on, Argentina, this is on the 24th of September. So 2 days ago, on Saturday, Argentina beat Honduras 3-0. Lionel Messi got a brace and Martinez got the other goal. So they look to be in good form. And I think they're one of the favourites to win the World Cup, which is coming up. And USA lost 2-0 to Japan, and Pulisic got injured. So that's not great for Chelsea, as he's the star man and carries them through every game that he plays. And Iran is also my top, one of my top tips for the World Cup. I feel like they'll top the group. Well, they beat Uruguay 1-0, and Uruguay are a fantastic team all around with Valverde in midfield. But I know Iran, they're in England's group. I think they might cause a few upsets. They're not. I've got many like superstars, but they're fantastically solid, and I think they could do a good job. Definitely get out of the group. And Brazil beat Ghana 3-0. This was much question about how Brazil would line up. Will they play Gabriel Jesus? The answer was definitely no, because they did not call him up. Instead, they played Richarlison, who did do well. He got 2 goals. Marquinhos got the second. So it looks like for the World Cup, Richarlison would definitely be a starter, probably alongside Vinicius and Neymar. But Rafinha is in with a shout. Definitely be an interesting dilemma for Brazil. I'm sure they've already sorted it out and they know who they're going to play for the World Cup in the front three. But with the abundance of talent and in particular wingers they have, it'd be definitely fun to watch them.
Yeah, I think that about is your international roundup for this week. It's been very eventful. A lot of upsets and a lot of shocks, and some teams that you will look forward to watching them in the World Cup.
Coming up soon is the Manchester Derby. I believe that's on Sunday, the 2nd of October. So that'll be definitely a game to watch out for coming up.
Yeah. And it'll definitely be something we'll be covering on the podcast. Keep an eye out on the Pitchsider website for articles coming. There should be one coming fairly soon for you. Thank you for joining me, Toby.
Thank you, mate.
And thank you to the listener. And have a good week, and we will see you next Monday.
For all the latest news, transfers, and football articles, check out thepitchsider.com. It's the place to be. Contact us on our socials. Instagram and Twitter is @thepitchsider, or via email is thepitchsider@hotmail.com.